You've seen Treasure Island at the height of its beauty, with every building bright with color, when every fountain sparkled in the sun, when every court, every...
I'm sorry. I thought... anyways. All right, so what I said, that film was made in 1916. That's why it was barely animated and filled with racial stereotypes. I'm doing a bunch of work with the Prelinger Archive, getting a bunch of their stuff online on their YouTube channel, Prelinger Archives Official. And this next film is about a World's Fair after the World's Fair has closed. Sorry. Bye.
You've seen Treasure Island at the height of its beauty, with every building bright with color, when every fountain sparkled in the sun, when every court, every road, every hallway was filled with people, when the banners flew and the music crashed out. Now Telling You shows you Treasure Island as it is today, abandoned and deserted. The plaster is cracking, the fountains are still, the flagpoles are bare. There's nobody on Treasure Island today but the seagulls. The gateway is bare, but not in the way it used to be. The barkers are gone, the girls are gone, the giant crane and the octopus and the roller coaster are still. Will they move once more? Will the World's Fair of the West ever be seen again in all its brilliant color, with its crowds and its music? Or will it always be barren like this? We don't know. That's up to the bankers and the creditors. But the giant cash register, which used to turn up the big attendance figures, is all closed up, and it doesn't seem to be in working order. So perhaps this is goodbye to the Golden Gate International Exposition.
That was fast. So I think, Miss Cynthia, maybe you chime in, because I think you're based in San Francisco. Some of that stuff still exists, but not a lot of it. I think I can't remember what the art museum is. It's kind of near the Golden Gate Bridge. Oof. I've been there, but I can't remember the name of it. I feel like that was part of that exposition. But then also Treasure Island, which when you take a bridge over, is it the Bay Bridge? You take over and then you can see Treasure Island below. Anyhow, James Brill, it's been a while. Let's talk to us about fire.
We use fire in many different ways to suit our different needs. And we use many different kinds of fuel. Here we use fire to get rid of rubbish. The fuels are waste materials from about the yard. Raking keeps the fire under control. When we use fire to cook our food, gas may be the fuel. The burner knob controls the size of the flame by regulating the flow of fuel that reaches the burner. When we use fire to heat our homes, coal may be the fuel. Furnace fires are controlled mainly by adjusting the draft opening on the ash pit door. When we use fire to produce light, kerosene or gasoline may be the fuel. Turning a knob regulates the flow of fuel and controls the flame. But whatever the purpose of the fire, or the kind of fuel, or the method of control, all fires depend upon the same principles. In order to learn more about fire, let's study the campfire these boys are building. Dry bark and twigs are good to start the fire, and the boys have heaped them at the center of the pile of fuel. They have chosen a site in a clearing so that the campfire can't spread out of control. Larger branches will keep the blaze going after the bark and twigs burn out. Now the pile of wood is ready. Heat from the match flame soon sets fire to the bark and small twigs. In a few seconds, there is enough heat to set fire to the larger twigs. Finally, the branches begin to burn. Because these must be hotter than either bark or twigs before they will take fire, we say that branches have a higher kindling temperature than bark or twigs. The boys want a bigger fire, so they do two things. First, they bring more branches and place them on the burning heap. Also, since they know that the fire will burn faster if the circulation of air increases, one of the boys fans the flames. The branches just added take fire quickly. With the campfire burning well, and with plenty of fuel to keep it going, the boys stretch out to enjoy its cheery warmth. When we watch a fire burning, we must keep in mind that we cannot see all that is actually happening. What are some of these important actions? For one thing, gases are given off from the heated pieces of wood. Here, black dots represent these gases. Oxygen, represented here by white dots, is part of the air surrounding the fire. When oxygen joins with the wood gases heated to their kindling points, burning takes place. As the oxygen and the heated gases burn, another gas, carbon dioxide, forms. The black dots joined with white dots represent carbon dioxide. The large black circles represent unburned soot particles that rise as smoke. All the while, fresh air flowing in at the bottom of the fire supplies needed oxygen. The fire burns as long as there is fuel and oxygen. Now, let's consider some ways of controlling fire. In this cook stove, the amount of fire is regulated by a knob. When it is turned on, the fuel gas flows into the burner. It draws oxygen along with it through the air intakes. Burning starts when this mixture of fuel gas and oxygen is heated to its kindling temperature. When this mixture is turned off, the flame goes out. Now let's see what happens in a coal-burning furnace. The rate at which the coal burns and gives off its heat depends upon the amount of oxygen supplied. The supply of oxygen is regulated mainly by the draft door. Now let's see how this affects the burning process. With the ash pit draft door only partly open, a moderate supply of oxygen flows into the firebox. As the coal burns, carbon dioxide and smoke form as they did in the campfire. The carbon dioxide and smoke escape through the chimney. We open the draft door wider to make the fire burn faster. Now, the largest possible draft of oxygen reaches the fuel and speeds up the burning. Although fire under control may be helpful to us in many ways, fire handled carelessly may cause trouble. This girl should have made sure the match flame was out. Fortunately, she knows what to do. Pouring water on the flame does two things. It cools the fuel below its kindling temperature, and it shuts off the oxygen supply. Many accidental fires begin when small children play with matches. This little boy has seen his parents strike matches, so when he finds them lying around, he wants to try it too. But this new plaything gets too hot to hold. The panda bear takes fire, and the situation is beyond the child's control. It's a good thing that Mother is close by and can come to the rescue. The thick rug shuts off the oxygen supply, and the fire goes out. Some fires start from faulty wiring, such as a frayed lamp cord. The bare wires touch and flames leap up. This home has a fire extinguisher handy, and the boy knows how to use it. How does this liquid put the fire out? Once in the open air, the liquid quickly changes into a gas. This gas will not burn. Instead, the gas builds up in layers around the burning fuel and gradually shuts off the flow of oxygen into the burning zone. Cut off from its oxygen supply, the fire goes out. We have seen that three things are necessary for fire. First, we need fuel. Second, we need enough heat to raise the fuel to its kindling temperature. Third, there must be a supply of oxygen. Without oxygen, there could be no fire, even though we have plenty of fuel and enough heat to raise the fuel to its kindling point. We have seen examples of controlled fire as we use it to burn trash, to cook our food, to heat our homes, and to furnish light. We have seen three ways of putting out accidental fires. First, by cutting off its oxygen supply using mechanical means. And third, by the use of a chemical. As long as we keep fire under control, it serves us well.
Thank you, James Brill. James Brill, of course, narrated hundreds? I don't know. He narrated a lot of educational films for ERPI and for what then became Encyclopedia Britannica. And he shows up in a couple of the films. There's one on sound recording where you see him speaking into a microphone. Yes, he is. He's got that voice. I love it. So here's some interesting things. Here's a coffee mug because we drink coffee here at AV Geeks. So here is a logo by Jason Polan, and then here is a drawing by a young kid, one of the homeschoolers. Then also, here's the thing that you've all been asking for. Finally, there are AV Geeks socks. Yes, I know. Oh, I know. So there is a store associated with our AV Geeks YouTube channel, which most of you are watching, and you can buy products there, and proceeds from that go to paying for our shelving units and our rentals and all that stuff of all the storage units that we have, and just general operating expenses for AV Geeks. So I think there's shirt, blankets, etc. that have the logo on them. So I'll put a link in the comments. Here's another Predator film. And our main character is sluggish. Why? Is it syphilis? Or is it something else? It's all in knowing how.
So it's all in knowing how, is it? Well, watch this. Yes, something's wrong, all right. Last year it looked like Bob Troy had all the makeup back. But this season it's a different story. Somehow he lacks his old drive. The brakes seem to be going against him, not only in football, but in almost everything. Take Al. She's noticed the difference in him, no question about that. Lately, he hasn't been much fun to be with. And, well, Hap Andrews... that make the walk home kind of... There's Jimmy the boy. He's just kidding, but Bob's not having any, thank you. Just one thing after another. Yes, for these past few months, it seemed like he couldn't win. Around the house, things weren't much better. It seemed to him that the family was always after him about being on time for meals and about what he ate or didn't eat. But the more they worried about him, the grouchier he got, and the less he was interested in any kind of food. He was just plain fed up, tired, and run out of pep. And the sad part was, he didn't know why. Luckily for Bob Troy, however, there were still a few people determined to help him get back his old pep and happiness. That same night, his parents had a chat with Mr. Farrell, the coach, who also taught biology. As they talked, an explanation appeared. The results of Bob's physical examination were fairly good, and the doctor had said there was nothing serious about his gradual slowing down. In fact, it happens too often, regardless of age. However, it usually can be corrected. Yes, corrected by two of the simplest, most enjoyable remedies known to man.
You bet I mean it, Bob. Sit down a moment. You start getting enough sleep and enough of the right foods, and mark my words, in a few months you'll be back in top shape.
But, Mr. Farrell, I mean, I get quite a bit of sleep, and I certainly eat all I want.
The point is, what do you eat, and how much rest do you get? Suppose we look at it this way. Last summer, when you worked out at the airport, you learned a lot about planes, didn't you? Well, your body is hundreds of times more complicated than any aircraft. Even the most perfectly tooled plane, factory-made, each part precision-engineered, will not fly very long unless it's given intelligent care and supplied with enough gas, oil, hydraulic fluid, and so forth. Without any of those, without skilled care, that plane is headed for serious trouble. Just as your body is headed for trouble if you don't give it the right combinations of food every day, as well as plenty of sleep. Suppose you tell me how much sleep you had yesterday, outside of class, I mean, and also exactly what you ate.
Well, as Bob thought back, he began to realize there was plenty of room for improvement. He'd had only 6 hours sleep, and often got less. Not enough by a long shot. No wonder he couldn't drag himself up mornings. And when he finally did, he had time for only a quick glass of fruit juice. His family, of course, got up in time to enjoy a good breakfast. But not him. He had to rush off to school, and then by 10:30 he kept checking his watch for lunchtime, getting more ravenous by the second. At last, when lunch came, he spent a good deal of money trying to satisfy his hunger. Again, had he eaten enough and included all the right foods? At dinner that night, he filled up on one or two things he liked best and left the rest of a good meal unfinished. Sure, he was too tired, too discouraged, but now he was beginning to understand why.
Bob, if your body were an airplane, careless treatment would put it on the scrap heap. But of course your body doesn't just quit. When you don't treat it right, it tries to keep going by making changes, gradual changes that affect your energy, your personality, and the way you feel. Now, you learned in biology that your body needs certain nutrients from food every day. Remember why? You need the mineral calcium for bones, for nerves, and for muscle action. Even for your heartbeat, because your heart is also muscle tissue. To give firmness to your muscles, you need protein. You need the mineral iron in red blood cells to carry oxygen from your lungs to your body cells. And you have to have vitamins. Vitamin A for vision, thiamine for steady nerves, vitamin C for healthy blood vessels and other tissue, riboflavin and other nutrients to help your body grow, maintain itself, and use food properly. Now, you know all this, Bob, but you've been forgetting that you need a sufficient variety of foods to give you basic net amounts every day, and along with them, the necessary calories to give you energy for work and sports, energy for fun, and for just being and feeling alive. Looks as if you've been missing a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does, Mr. Farrell.
All right. Now, this is just a suggestion, but I've got an idea as to how you can do something about it. In the biology course, we're working on a project that may mean a lot.
Well, Farrell was a sly old fox at that. What had he done but suggest Bob help Alice with an idea she had for her nutrition project in biology? Not that Alice needed help, really. She'd already noticed what a difference proper rest and good eating made in her pep and personality. That was the beginning. Bob was good at charts, and they worked one out together. They based it on the foods he needed each day and the reasons behind these needs. The chart would fit Alice, too, providing she ate a little less than Bob of each of the different kinds of foods. They listed the nutrients, as Mr. Farrell had done: calcium, protein, iron, different vitamins. Then they drew a goal line. It represented the recommended amounts of different nutrients their food should give them each day. For instance, meat, fish, or poultry, or alternates, 2 servings, and an egg would give them this fine base of nutrients. Iron and vitamins. Then they added vegetables and fruits. 5 servings, long on the green, leafy, and yellow vegetables and on citrus fruits and tomatoes. Look at the buildup in vitamins, particularly A and C. Next, whole grain or enriched bread and cereal. At least 1 generous serving at each meal, adding some of many nutrients, as well as energy. But even with all these foods, while they could see that they were coming closer to the goal, there were still big gaps. One more food group was needed: dairy food. For a boy Bob's age, the equivalent of 1 to 1 1/2 quarts of milk a day plus butter. Bob chose 4 glasses of milk, a serving of cheese and ice cream, and 3 pats of butter. Actually, these dairy foods put him over the goal line in nutrients. For milk and milk products supply most of the calcium and riboflavin, plus protein and other essential nutrients. No wonder milk and other dairy foods belong in every meal. Yes, cold milk to drink at mealtime and in refrigerator raids, milk in cooked foods, and butter, adding its flavor and food value to many foods. Cheese to suit any taste, and ice cream, so good and so easy to serve in many ways. Yes, it's all in knowing how. And as Bob helped Alice assemble the chart, he saw how easy and pleasant it is to eat intelligently. And the interesting part was that while he could make the goal in nutrients if he ate these kinds and amounts of foods, he still needed more food for energy. This meant he could go back for seconds, or add other favorite foods to fill that energy need.
Gee, that looks all right, doesn't it? You mean, if I eat all of that, I won't get out of shape?
Well, not if you don't overdo it. Eating the right foods doesn't make anybody fat, and it won't cheat us of our snacks either. Well, look at me. Look at Tom Andrews.
I'd rather look at you.
The more Bob began to look around him, the more he realized how much he'd been missing lately. He saw, for instance, why his parents got up in time for a good breakfast together.
I used to cut my sleep short, and I'd have to eat breakfast on the run the way you've been doing. Well, it finally caught up. If I hadn't started getting more sleep and eating correctly, I might have lost my job. Believe me, Bob, taking care of yourself really pays off.
And Bob didn't have to be told either, because he could see a lot of things now. Really envied were the ones who took care of themselves. They were the ones having fun, getting enjoyment out of good eating and the friendly companionship shared over food. And once Bob realized what he'd been missing, he made up his mind to do something about it. No miracles, and the change didn't happen overnight either. But gradually as time passed, Bob had new pep and a new attitude at home and everywhere. Now that he'd given his body a break, it was beginning to pay him back in energy, stamina, and steady nerves, in personality and looks. And best of all, he was having a good time again. Fun with Alice, fun with his friends, fun with his family. By springtime, he was looking ahead with a wonderful kind of confidence that would carry him on through school and into aviation or whatever career he sought. Because Bob Troy was back in shape again and ready to roll. Yes, like the man had once said, it's all in knowing how.
Of course it's the Dairy Council. And, yeah, you want to talk about a conspiratorial take on things. And I don't know if anybody's ever actually written about it, but you have so many films in the early 20th century, and, you know, actually spanning the entire 20th century, that talk about nutrition and the food groups. And let me say, the number of food groups changes. I did a show called Why We're Fat, where we went from 2 food groups up to 7. And so that changes depending on who's talking about what. But dairy is always included. And the reason why is most of these films were actually made by a dairy council. So, you know, you could argue that there are plenty of cultures in the world that don't have dairy as part of their diet, and they are plenty healthy. So I think there's some conspiracy. Now, I love me some milk. I love me some dairy, some cheese and some ice cream and things like that. But I just wonder. All right, so here's a film about film. We love these. We love these films that are self-referential and where they show a projector being shown and they show students watching the film. So this is Film Research and Learning. Enjoy.
This film will present a digest of some basic research which explains how the use of well-selected 16mm motion picture teaching films has improved instruction. These research studies explain how film experiences may help students learn increased amounts of new information, which is remembered longer, and which therefore may be applied efficiently to problem-solving situations as pupils progress from lower to higher grades. Without doubt, some of the most effective teaching goes on in the primary grades. As the teacher begins instruction in reading, she knows that experiences and understandings must precede the printed word in its comprehension. She recognizes the axiom before the word, the idea, or reading readiness, then reading. Before the word, the idea simply means that the child must first gain understandings about real things, concrete things. Later, the child can associate appropriate understandings with the words or phrases that stand for them. The teacher explains this process as we see, we learn, we read. This group is getting ready to read a simple story, and Johnny's teacher is explaining that before they read, they will leave the classroom to visit some of the places and things they will later read about in books. In the beginning, it is very easy to provide first-hand experiences, reading readiness experiences. The school neighborhood provides useful and interesting opportunities to see, to examine, and understand. Understandings they will later meet through words in books. Understandings are first gained by seeing things at first hand, watching, experiencing. These understandings will then be matched to words which stand for them. As practice continues in relating ideas to words, children soon learn to read, which in itself is little more than the process of matching new experience with appropriate words. Back in the classroom, the children make a discovery. These up and down lines, these circles and curves are really words. Words which stand for the things they saw and now know about. The children continue to practice matching understandings with words. And as this happens, the remarkable process of reading has begun. As reading continues, new and more difficult words are introduced. This creates a need for more and more first-hand experiencing. A need which will continue throughout the entire school experiences of these children. This becomes more complicated as the things we read about no longer can be witnessed in the schoolyard, in nearby parks, or out in the neighborhood. As second graders prepare to read about things which happen far away or are difficult to see in real life, the problem of providing readiness for such reading increases. It is at this point that the usefulness of the 16mm sound motion picture teaching film dramatically reveals itself. The teaching film can be used to supply many desired experiences which should precede reading. In the film reading study conducted by the Harriet Gorman Committee, Dr. Paul Whitty and James Fitzwater, it was discovered that the use of the teaching film can help children learn to become better readers. This study measured the way in which the use of 8 selected sound motion picture films influenced their reading, the reading of second grade children. In this study, it was revealed that 95% of the children showed improvement in reading. It continued to demonstrate that 95% of the children showed vocabulary improvement, that 70% were able to express more and better ideas during class discussion, and that 99% of the group wanted to continue to learn to read the film experience way. When these findings were checked against the judgment of participating teachers, they reported, the children learned to read faster, class discussion improved, independent reading increased, and vocabulary, the key to success in reading, was increased. In the intermediate grades, the need for providing real experiences about things studied continues. Good teaching methods include the use of pictures, the chalkboard, models, and charts, usually before the learners turn to the pages of books for information. Some of the pupils can recall experiences of their own about pupas, larvae, and insects, and they can describe them to their classmates as they refer to charts like these. But for all the children in the classroom to really understand how things move and grow and develop from one stage to another, something else is needed. Something which can bring living experiences right into the classroom, experiences that are as lifelike as reality itself. What would happen if sound motion picture films were added as study materials in this classroom? A study by V.C. Arnspiger reveals the answer to this question. In an experiment in the use of films during the study of natural science, Arnspiger worked with over 2,000 students. He found that film-using groups were able to achieve gains up to 30% above those possible by non-film using class groups. Continuing his study in the area of music, he discovered gains from 18 to 34% for 7th grade film-using groups. 4 weeks later, Arnspiger measured the retention of film-learned information. Science film group superiority ranged up to 18%. Music film groups retained up to 32% more information. The motion picture film does improve pupil achievement. Lewis Rowe inquired of 7th graders' science vocabulary. His study measured the role of the 16mm sound and motion teaching film in classroom learning situations already judged to be well above average in planning and instructional experience. What will happen to science vocabulary growth, Romano asked, if in classrooms which already use many modern teaching methods, the study display, the chalkboard, models and specimens, we add carefully selected teaching films and still pictures? What will be the result of using motion picture films and pictures to explain how fossils actually became entrapped in these specimens? How the great sedimentary layers were really laid down? How things really happened as we study science? Romano found his answer. Greater vocabulary gains were earned by film and picture using groups. 5th grade, up to 300% greater vocabulary. 6th grade, more than twice the vocabulary learned by control groups. 7th grade, up to 200% greater vocabulary gains than by non-film picture groups. The efficiency of film materials when used as supplementary experiences in the junior high school science was investigated by Rouland. The films included visualizations of the formation of the Earth's surface, the effects of erosion, plant life, simple animals, and the life cycle of frogs. Rouland realized that even the best models, charts, specimens, sometimes fall short of helping learners achieve complete understanding. The dissection of a frog cannot reveal the gradual development from egg to polywog to adult. It cannot explain how a frog lives, moves, swims, gets its food, or propagates its young. To do these things, motion is needed, animation and stop-speed photography. But what really is the effect of the film use in such situations? Rouland sought the answer among nearly 3,000 film and non-film using 9th graders, and he discovered that students who worked with films as they studied biology and physiology units learned increasing amounts of information. They learned up to 20% more information. And as important, he discovered that recall tests reveal that the film-using groups retained this information 38% more completely than did non-film-using groups. Similar results were recorded by Meyer Henry and others in Nebraska, as the effects of film use were measured among high school students in 28 community high schools. The results indicated superior gains made by film-using groups of students in several subject areas: in general science, in biology, in physics, and in world geography. The use of the 16mm sound and motion picture teaching film can result in greater learning outcomes. In the lower grades, the film permits children to gain needed, first-hand, difficult-to-witness experience, reading readiness experience, which results in understanding. Understandings which can be associated with words, sentences, and books to produce reading comprehension, reading skill. As course of study goals describe the need for understanding people, places, and cultures that are far away, the teaching film reveals more of its many strengths. The film can reach out to anywhere in the world to capture real-life experiences. Experiences about foreign people and homes, customs and vocations, music and art. The teaching film can bring any of these experiences right into the classroom at the very time they are needed to provide useful, concrete understandings to be used during discussion, creative writing, and reading. Research evidence accumulated over a 20-year period shows that the teaching film, when carefully selected and wisely used under work-study conditions, can improve instruction by bringing the best of 20th century communication techniques into any classroom anywhere. On through the upper grades and into the high school, the teaching film offers see and hear and learning ideas which become effective means of enriching learning and preparing youth to better find their places in the society they will enter.
Apologize for the frog gore. Wow, that film was dry. That was super dry. I feel bad. So I'm going to show you a film that I scanned yesterday that I was like, whoa. The can said Singing Puppets Christmas Program. So enjoy.
I've got news. I want to tell it out. Good old gospel news. I've got news, I've got news, I've got news. I want to sing it out. No more sing, sing blues. God has given you a talent and a blessing you'll receive. If you're not gonna use it, then your talent's gonna leave. Be God's reporter, giving up the gospel news. I've got news, I've got news, I've got news. I want to tell it out. Good old gospel news. I've got news, I've got news, I've got news. I want to sing it out.
Bethlehem is like a city tonight, Father. So many people from so many places.
Yes, my daughter, when Caesar the king makes a command, people know they must obey.
Do people always return to the place where they were born when they are to be counted?
That's right. Caesar wants to be sure how many Jews there are. He wants to be careful so we do not become too powerful for his soldiers.
So many people in Bethlehem, Father. People on camels, people on donkey back. Some have even come in chariots. And I have seen beautiful women wearing fine clothes from countries far away.
Sir, a man down the street told me you're the owner of the inn here in Bethlehem. I've traveled far.
Say no more. The inn is full.
But
I tell you, the inn is full. There is nothing I can do for you. You are not the first one I have turned away. There have been at least 30 before you.
No room, but where shall I sleep tonight?
That's for you to worry about. We have no room.
If only the inn were twice as big.
It needs to be many times bigger than that. If we had business like this every night, I would soon be a rich man.
Here comes a nobleman, Father. Oh, do you suppose he wants a room?
My good sir, they tell me you are the innkeeper.
And my good sir, I tell you, we have no room.
No room? But
no room.
It doesn't have to be much, only a place to sleep. I will pay you well.
There is no room.
I will pay you very well.
Go away, I tell you. The inn is full. There is no room. Now go.
Very well.
I wish people would leave us alone.
I have never thought before how thankful I should be for a place to sleep at night. Oh, look, Father. Here come a man and lady. The lady's very pretty. Oh, she is soon going to have a baby. We must find room for them.
Where? On the roof?
I am Joseph of Nazareth.
And you want a room. Well, Joseph of Nazareth, whoever that is, if you were King Caesar from Rome, I would still have to tell you we have no room at the inn.
No room at all?
No room at all.
But my wife, she must have good care. Our first child will soon be born.
There is no room in the inn.
Couldn't they have my room, Father?
Why, you foolish child. You know we have rented your room to someone else. You and your mother and I will sleep in the attic tonight.
I must find a place for my wife. It does not matter for myself, but I must find a place for my wife.
Then find someplace else. There is no room here.
But we will take any place, sir. Any place.
I told you there is no room.
We would not need to be in the inn.
All I have is the inn.
No other place where we might at least find shelter?
No other place.
What about the...
What, my dear?
The stable.
The stable?
That would be fine.
You would stay in the stable?
It would be better than spending the night on the street. At least it would be a place of shelter for my wife. Do you mind, Mary, my dear?
I do not mind, Joseph. I am very tired, but I will be thankful to God for any place to rest.
Then let them stay in the stable, Father. May I show them the way?
Go ahead.
Thank you, dear girl.
The Lord will bless you, my child. You have done a wonderful thing, finding a place of shelter for us.
Be gone, I tell you. Show them to the stable, daughter. Go on.
Follow me.
Imagine that. Willing to stay in the stable, in a barn, with all of the animals. Who knows? Maybe their child will be born there. Wouldn't the men of Bethlehem join me in a good laugh if that would happen?
Wow. Hand puppets, rubber hand puppets that were, I would think, mass-produced. So there's no other information on that film. I don't know if there's a follow-up to the next scene. It just says puppets. There's an attribution to the quintet that is singing. I know nothing about this, and I'm hoping. So this was part of the films that we got from Basement Films in Albuquerque, where they were kind of culling their collection, and they were like, "We have like 700 films from this religious film library. Do you want them?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, I do." And we have found some amazing films in there. The one about a missionary work, which has all these little wooden mannequins and talking about gathering peaches. Do you smell smoke? There's just been really just some hits in there. Some misses, of course, like all the Billy Graham stuff is kind of dull. But man, I am so excited to continue going into that collection and seeing what else we can share with you. It might be unsettling, because the best Christian films are unsettling or just bewildering in my mind. And there's many of those that were made. Anyways, thank you so much for watching today. Kevin, thank you for the donation. Gabriel, thank you for the donation. Kevin donated via the Super Thanks button. Gabriel donated via the ko-fi.com/avgeeks option. All of those are great ways to help support us with storage unit rent. I mean, that's like $2,000 a month. And we are so close to having our film vault, our new space at the archive, which is dedicated to just storing films. That's climate controlled, moisture controlled. There's water mitigation stuff. It's well lit, which is a big deal because it wasn't well lit before. All this stuff. And I hope to show you within the next couple of days so you can get a sense of what it is. But the idea is that we will start bringing films back and filling up that space so that we don't have to pay so much with storage. Of course, that money is just going to go straight into paying off the loan that we took out so that we could build that space, but there you go. At least it's investing back into the property. And that means I don't have to go to one of 7 storage units to pull films, which I've been doing pretty much every other day this week. So thank you so much for watching. Very much appreciate your eyeballs. I appreciate your willingness to expose yourself to a wide spectrum of insanity. I mean, that's why I collect, is to show you the strange stuff that I find that is bewildering or absurd or so boring that it's meditative. So thanks again for watching, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Everybody take care. Oh, let me just say real quick, so some AV Geeks things have been showing up in some credits recently. So there is a documentary about Paul Rubens on HBO, which I totally recommend, and I am spacing on the title. But we did a bunch of work for that, where we digitized, let me see if I can find this real quick. A Pee-wee as himself. We digitized some home movies of Paul Rubens and Larry Bud Melman. Well, it was Pee-wee and Larry Bud Melman at Universal Studios and Disneyland. And we also digitized some early video of Paul Rubens, even before he took on the name Paul Rubens. It was a student film for that documentary. And then also on PBS, on American Experience, there is Mr. Polaroid, where we sold them some stock footage of various people taking pictures with Polaroid cameras and some other footage. So the AV Geeks, they're out there. They're doing stuff. It's not all just about making socks, AV Geek socks that are super comfortable. We are actually contributing back into the world of documentaries. So we can't do that without you. So thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.